Dobro. History. Archive.
So let's talk about a story where a massive, catastrophic engineering failure crashes head-on into one of America's most chilling modern myths. It's a wild story about a bridge, a monster, and the desperate search for answers that came after. Let's get into what really happened on that cold December evening.
46. This is the number that really defines everything we're about to talk about. And it's not just a statistic. It represents families, futures, an entire community just completely shattered.
And the speed of it, it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. It took less time for this to happen than it takes for me to say this sentence. A huge structure, something meant to connect two states, just vanished. And it took dozens of people with it.
And this quote, wow, it comes from someone who was just feet away from driving onto the bridge. It just captures the absolute surreal horror of that moment. I mean, can you imagine seeing a massive steel structure, a symbol of permanence, just fold?
Okay, so let's set the scene. You gotta picture it. It's a cold, damp Friday, just 10 days before Christmas. The time is 4:58 p.m.
So this bridge, right, it was a vital artery connecting West Virginia and Ohio, and it was absolutely jammed with holiday shoppers, people trying to get home from work, trucks. The traffic lights on the West Virginia side were famously slow, so cars would just back up and sit there idling right on the span. The bridge was under a full, heavy load.
And for anyone on the riverbanks, this was the first sign that something was terribly, terribly wrong. It was the sound of steel pushed way beyond its limits for decades, finally just giving up.
So in the chaos that followed, as rescuers desperately searched the freezing Ohio River, two completely separate investigations started to take shape. One was a search for a physical cause, and the other was a search for a pattern, a warning, maybe even a supernatural one.
And this is really where the story splits in two. On one side, you have the forensic engineers, the scientists, digging through twisted metal for a smoking gun. And on the other side, you have a town that had been reporting sightings of this terrifying winged creature for over a year. So which was it? Did a tiny crack in a steel bar cause all this, or was something else at play? All right, let's start with the science. The National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, they launched one of their first ever major investigations. They were absolutely determined to figure out exactly what went wrong. Now, to really get what happened, you need to understand this one core concept. The Silver Bridge was what's called fracture critical. Just think of it like a chain, you know? If one single link breaks, the entire chain is toast. There was absolutely no redundancy, no backup plan built into its design at all. And you can really see the difference when you put it side by side with modern standards. Instead of a modern suspension cable made up of thousands of wires, the Silver Bridge used this chain of massive steel eye-bars. And here's the kicker. It only used 2 bars per link. The material itself was this high-strength but really brittle carbon steel. And the way the joints were designed made it impossible to even see the most critical stress points to inspect them. It was basically a ticking time bomb from the day it opened back in 1928. Okay, so here's how that whole cascade of failure happens so unbelievably fast. A tiny crack, just a little over 1/10 of an inch deep, that had been growing for decades from corrosion and stress, suddenly snaps. The entire load doubles on the 1 bar left, which of course immediately fails. And just like that, the whole suspension chain on one side is gone. The towers lose their balance, and the whole thing just twists and disintegrates into the river.
All right, now let's step away from the science for a minute and step into the strange. Because the collapse of the bridge, that wasn't the beginning of the story for the folks in Point Pleasant. No, for them, it was the terrifying climax.
So just north of town, there was this creepy, abandoned World War II explosives plant. People called it the TNT area, and it was dotted with these overgrown concrete igloos. It was kind of a local hangout for teenagers, and in November of 1966, it became the epicenter of something that would put Point Pleasant on the map for a very, very different reason.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It all kicks off with this terrifying encounter out in the TNT area. A local paper runs this amazing headline that accidentally gives the creature its name, and pretty soon reports are just flooding in. But this is the part that's really, really chilling. That last entry before the collapse. A local journalist, Mary Heyer, who'd been documenting all these sightings, she started having these specific, horrifying nightmares about Christmas presents floating in the river, a detail rescuers would confirm just days later. So after all is said and done, what are we left with?
Well, the Silver Bridge disaster left behind not one, but two powerful and totally distinct legacies that are still shaping our world today. First, you've got the concrete lesson in engineering. The NTSB's meticulous work proved that a microscopic flaw could have absolutely catastrophic consequences. This directly led to the creation of national inspection standards. So think about this. Every single time you drive over a bridge in the United States today, its safety is a direct result of the lessons that were learned from this horrible tragedy.
And then you have the legend. The really weird part? After the bridge fell, the Mothman sightings, they just stopped. Gone. Was it a warning? A harbinger of doom? Books and movies cemented the story in pop culture, and the town of Point Pleasant, instead of running from its strange history, totally embraced it. The Mothman became their mascot, their tourist attraction, their own unique myth. It was a way of taking this powerless moment and owning the story. And that's the strange duality of this whole thing, right? The very same event created a system of science and regulation that quietly saves lives every single day. And at the exact same time, it fueled this dark, captivating mystery that just refuses to go away.
So what was it really? Was the collapse just a predictable physics? Was the Mothman some genuine omen sent to warn the town? Or is the story of the Mothman just a way for our minds to process a senseless, random tragedy by giving it a face and a name and glowing red eyes?